Christmas always carried a certain weight in my parents' house. Polished surfaces, stiff smiles, a tree decorated the way my mother liked. Perfect, controlled, untouched by children's hands. I walked in holding my kids' coats, the cold still clinging to us like a second layer. My son, 10 years old, stood close beside me, his breath soft, measured, hopeful in that small, fragile way children hope holidays might feel different. My name is Danielle, I'm 36, and I've learned that some families don't gift warmth, they gift conditions. The room went silent when we stepped inside. Not a startled silence. A chosen one. My mother's eyes swept over me like she was checking for flaws. My father didn't even pretend to smile. He simply set down his glass, looked directly at me and said, with a voice colder than the December air we'd just escaped, "Everything was peaceful, until you showed up." My son's shoulders fell instantly. His head lowered, chin tucked tight as though he was somehow responsible for the shift in the room. My daughter moved closer to my leg, sensing the tension even before she understood the words. I felt the sting, yes, but I felt something else too. A stillness. A clarity. I reached for my son, cupping the back of his head, kissing his hair gently. "You didn't ruin anything," I whispered. "You never have." My parents watched like I'd broken some unspoken rule simply by loving him out loud. My father exhaled sharply, annoyed. My mother looked away, embarrassed by the softness she refused to understand. So I straightened, set down the gift bag in my hand and said calmly, almost quietly, "Then my money's leaving with me." The room jolted. A pause, fractured and sudden. 5 minutes later, my parents started begging me. They didn't beg right away. People like my parents don't crumble instantly, they soften in stages, like ice realizing it can't outlast the sun. At first there was denial. My father scoffed, folding his arms. "Don't be ridiculous, Danielle. You always overreact. Sit down. The kids can open their gifts." My mother chimed in with a brittle laugh. "Yes, stop causing scenes on Christmas. We're trying to have a peaceful evening." Peaceful. A word they used the way some people use perfume, sprayed over everything hoping it masks the truth. My son stayed close to me, still looking down, hands tucked into his sleeves like he was trying to disappear. I squeezed his shoulder gently, just enough to anchor him. I repeated calmly, "I'm leaving. And the financial support leaves with me." A silence followed, different from the first one. Thicker. Sharper. Reality stitching itself into their expressions. The truth wasn't new, their shock came from realizing I finally meant it. My father stood straighter. "You can't just walk out. We rely on." He stopped himself, but the sentence had already exposed everything. My mother's face tightened, panic slipping through the cracks. "Danielle, sweetheart, let's not ruin the holiday. Think of the kids." "I am thinking of them," I said. "Which is why we're going." My son finally looked up at me, just briefly, and I saw it. Relief mixed with confusion, a flicker of being chosen. I gathered our coats. My daughter held out her hand so I could help her into hers. My mother reached toward her instinctively, but pulled back when I didn't step closer. And then as I zipped my son's jacket, my father's voice dropped, tight, urgent. "Wait. No anger now. No authority. Just fear." Then came my mother's whisper, shaking in a way I had never heard. "Danielle, please. Don't go." 5 minutes earlier we were the problem. Now we were the solution. My parents stood frozen by the tree, the warm lights reflecting across their faces in uneven patches, soft glow on hard expressions. It was strange, watching two people who had spent years mastering control suddenly fumble for footing. "Danielle," my mother said again, her voice wobbling. "Please don't leave. The kids haven't even opened their presents." My daughter clutched my coat, unconvinced by the sudden softness. My son lingered behind me, half hidden, like a child used to absorbing impact rather than attention. "We don't need gifts tonight," I replied gently. "They need respect. Stability. Peace that doesn't depend on us being quiet." My father swallowed hard, irritation and panic twisting together. "You're misunderstanding what we meant earlier. You're always so sensitive. We didn't say anything that terrible. You said everything was peaceful until I arrived," I said. "In front of my children." His jaw tightened. "You took it the wrong way." I nodded, a small, almost tired motion. "I usually do." That made him flinch, not visibly but internally where accountability cuts deepest. My mother stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Danielle, please. You know we've been stressed. The house, your father's health, the bills." "We didn't mean." "The bills?" I echoed softly. "The bills I pay? Those bills." Her eyes darted away. There it was. The fracture point. For years they had treated my support like an obligation, quiet, dependable, invisible. They wanted my presence small but my contributions overflowing. And now, they felt the weight of its absence. My father exhaled sharply. You can't just pull financial support without warning. We depend on you. I know, I said. That's the problem. My son reached for my hand. I took it. My mother's breath hitched when she saw the gesture. Danielle, please stay. Don't punish us. I looked at her calmly. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm choosing us. My mother's face folded in on itself, confusion first, then hurt, then something far more fragile, recognition. The kind that comes when a truth finally lands where it should have landed years ago. Danielle, she whispered, we're your parents. I met her eyes, steady. And I'm your daughter. Not your shield. Not your scapegoat. Not your wallet. My father's mouth tightened, but something in him sagged too, like the structure he relied on had shifted one beam too many. We never asked you for money, he muttered. You accepted every transfer, I said. Every tuition payment, every mortgage catch-up, every repair you couldn't afford. You didn't ask because you expected. My son's grip tightened around my hand, grounding me. His breathing steadied when I squeezed back. My mother stepped closer again, but this time without the sharpness she usually carried. We didn't realize how much pressure you felt. We didn't think it affected you like that. I gave a small, sad smile. I didn't think you noticed me at all. She inhaled shakily and I watched something in her unravel. Maybe pride, maybe denial, maybe both. Danielle. Sweetheart, please don't go home angry, she said. It's Christmas. I'm not angry, I replied softly. I'm done. The words settled in the room like falling snow, quiet, cold, irrefutable. My daughter tugged my sleeve for her mitten. I helped her slip it on. My parents watched every movement as if each one pulled us further out of their orbit. My father took a step forward. If you walk out now, things will never be the same. I nodded gently. They shouldn't be. He blinked, stunned. He had expected fear, guilt, hesitation, anything but acceptance. My mother's voice cracked. Please don't take the kids. Let them stay. Let us fix this. I looked at my son, who had lowered his head when we arrived, and saw him straighten just slightly, hope rising under his ribs. No, I said. They're coming with me. The room shifted the moment I said it. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a subtle tilt like gravity had changed its allegiance. My parents stared at me as though the sentence itself were impossible, a glitch in the script they'd rehearsed for decades. My father recovered first. He always did. Danielle, don't be irrational. The kids should stay. They love Christmas here. My son looked up at him, and for the first time that night, there was no fear in his eyes, only a quiet disappointment. He stepped closer to me until his shoulder touched my arm. My daughter slipped her mittened hand into mine. They don't need Christmas, I said. They need respect. My mother flinched as if the word itself carried weight. We do respect you. I almost laughed. Not out of cruelty but disbelief. You told me peace ended when I arrived. In front of my children. How is that respect? She opened her mouth, then closed it. No defense. No excuse. Just silence. My father tried a different tactic. Danielle, think about everything we've done for you, raising you, helping you when you were younger. You helped when it looked good, I said quietly. You loved when it was convenient. And you took when it was easy. His jaw clenched, but the truth didn't leave room for rebuttal. I guided my kids into their coats. Their movements were small, cautious, but sure. My son whispered, Mom, are we actually leaving? There wasn't fear in his voice. There was relief. Yes, I whispered. My father stepped forward again, voice rising. You can't leave and cut us off financially. That's punishment. No, I said calmly. It's boundaries. The words settled between us, heavy, unfamiliar, immovable. My mother's voice cracked into a whisper. Danielle, please. Let's talk. Let's fix this. Just don't go. But we were already walking toward the door. And this time they followed. Begging quietly. Desperately. Unexpectedly. They weren't losing Christmas. They were losing control. They followed us into the foyer, their footsteps frantic, uneven, as if fear had finally loosened every polished layer they wore in front of the world. My father reached the door first, planting his hand against it, not forcefully, not in anger, but in something far more vulnerable, desperation. Danielle, wait, he said, breath trembling despite his attempt to appear composed. Please. Just stop for a minute. I paused, not because he asked but because my son squeezed my hand, seeking reassurance, not hesitation. I looked down at him, then back at my parents. My mother approached slowly, the way someone approaches a fragile object they never learned how to handle. "We didn't mean what we said earlier," she murmured. "It was a stressful morning. We're all tired. Emotions were high." My daughter pressed against my leg, her mitten brushing my coat. "Grandma," she whispered, "Mom didn't do anything wrong." The words landed like a soft truth with sharp edges. My mother's face crumpled. "I know," she said, voice cracking. "I know she didn't." Something in her expression shifted, a realization maybe, or a long-delayed clarity. But she still wasn't seeing the full picture. "I'm not leaving because of what you said today," I explained. "I'm leaving because of everything that came before today. The years of coldness. The blame. The subtle digs. The way you treat my children like extensions of your expectations." My father swallowed hard. "We can do better." I nodded. "Yes, you can. But it won't be at the expense of our peace anymore." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Danielle, if you walk out, we lose more than money." Something in me softened, not toward him but toward the truth of his statement. "You're right," I said quietly. "You lose the version of me you took for granted." My son's fingers wrapped around mine again, firmer this time. I opened the door. Cold air swept in, but it didn't sting. Not anymore. The cold outside felt different now, crisp, clean, almost clarifying. My kids stepped out first, their boots crunching lightly against the snow-dusted porch. I followed, pulling the door gently until only a narrow strip of warm light remained between us and my parents. They stood in that sliver like people trying to hold on to something slipping through their fingers. "Danielle?" My father's voice cracked in a way I hadn't heard since childhood. "If you leave now, how do we fix this?" The question wasn't manipulative this time. It was honest, raw, frightening for him. I turned slowly, keeping one hand on the door, the other in my son's. "By starting over," I said. "Separately for now. With boundaries you don't get to cross just because you're my parents." My mother's breath trembled. "We didn't realize we were hurting you." "You noticed," I said softly. "You just didn't think it mattered enough to stop." She flinched, not at cruelty but at accuracy. The living room behind them glowed with Christmas warmth, garlands, candles, the tree shining with ornaments we'd helped hang when I was young. But none of it felt like home. It felt like a museum of a family we pretended to be. My daughter tugged my coat. "Mom? Can we go now?" "Yes, sweetheart," I whispered. My father stepped out of the doorway, snow catching in his hair. He looked older suddenly, exhausted, humbled, small. "Danielle, please don't shut us out." I held his gaze. "I'm not shutting you out. I'm stepping out. There's a difference." My son straightened beside me as if hearing a lesson unfolding in real time. My mother's voice barely rose above a whisper. "Will you come back?" "When it's safe," I said. Emotionally. For me and for them. They didn't argue. They didn't demand. For the first time in years, they listened. I closed the door gently. Not in anger. In freedom. We walked toward the car slowly, not because of hesitation, but because the moment itself felt delicate, like leaving a chapter without slamming it shut. Snowflakes drifted in soft spirals around us, landing on my daughter's hood, melting on my son's warm breath. The quiet outside was deeper, more honest than any silence inside my parents' house had ever been. I opened the car doors, helping the kids in. My son buckled himself, his movements careful, thoughtful. My daughter hummed under her breath, a small, content sound that made something inside me loosen. As I rounded to the driver's side, I saw the front door open again. My parents stepped out onto the porch, not calling after me this time, not demanding, not blaming. They simply stood there, side by side, watching us through the cold. For a moment, none of us moved. My father raised a hand halfway, then let it fall, unsure of the gesture. My mother pressed her hand to her mouth as if holding in words she finally understood were too late. I sat in the driver's seat, turned the key, and the heater hummed to life. "Mom?" my son said softly. "Are they gonna be okay?" I looked at him in the rearview mirror, at his steady eyes, his quiet bravery, the way he'd learned too early to make himself small in rooms that didn't deserve him. "They will be," I said. "Because we're not giving them the power to hurt us anymore." He nodded slowly, absorbing that in a way only children can, deeply, permanently. I backed out of the driveway, the tire tracks marking a path away from a home that had never really been ours. My parents didn't shout. They didn't chase. They just watched. For once, they understood the consequence of their own words. And as the house disappeared in my mirrors, a truth settled into me with the warmth of the car's vent. Peace didn't break when I walked in. Peace began when I walked out.